It's often helpful for us whenever we are studying Scripture to look at the origin of particular words, to look at their etymology. It's especially helpful for those of us who only read the English Scriptures, right? A translation. Because no matter how good a translation might be, there's subtleties in the words from the original language that can't be expressed through it. And this is helpful, particularly today, to find the deeper meaning in the theme that is found in our readings. That theme of doing the Father's will or being obedient. That word obedience comes from the Latin, and the root word is audire, which means to hear. Right? Obedience means to be subject, to serve, or to listen. And so in order to do the Father's will, in order to be obedient, we have to first know what the Father's will is, right? We have to first listen. And we can't listen unless we are silent. Right? If someone is talking to me and I'm talking right back to them, I'm not doing a very good job of listening. Right? I have to be silent to be able to hear what they are saying. And so today I want to talk about two difficulties that we have in cultivating silence in our lives. The first one is pretty obvious and sort of redundant. Right? We're not good at being silent because there's too much noise in our life. You might say, well, duh, Father, but let me go on. We can't hear what God is telling us if there's noise all around us, right? If there's no silence in our lives. And this is a huge problem for us, particularly today. Right? The world is constantly trying to distract us, right? Constantly putting noise in our lives. And I think that one place this is seen is in the fact that from about 12 years old, kids have cell phones, right? Little personal computers always at their fingertips. Now, I know that this is not going to be popular, and that I'm probably going to offend people here, but I sort of don't care, right? This is ridiculous. It's crazy, right? To give a kid, because that's what they are, kids, I'm still a kid in a lot of ways, right? To give them this unrestricted access to the internet 24 hours a day is absolutely crazy. Don't do it, right? I've heard all of the arguments, but I disagree with pretty much all of them, right? I don't think that there's any reason for someone who does not drive to have a cell phone. I think it's crazy. And then, whenever they are able to drive and they need something to keep in touch with you, mom and dad, get them a cell phone that calls you. That's it. Right? They don't need anything else. If they need to navigate, get them a GPS that doesn't have internet access. Got it? Great. Good. Because if they can't drive, they're either where you left them, or someone has to bring them somewhere else, right? And they can do the old-fashioned thing and borrow a phone from the person that drove them to call you to let you know that they're not where you left them, right? They're going somewhere else. But, yeah, that's good. I'll give you two reasons, right, why you shouldn't do this. Shouldn't give your kids phones with all these things. The first one is that their minds are still developing. Right, there are all kind of articles out there that spending all this time on iPads and iPhones and screens of any sort is not healthy for developing minds, right? And if you don't believe me, try to take this away from a kid who's using it. Right, a lot of times they go ballistic. It's kind of fun to watch if you don't have to deal with it. Right? It's not good for their developing minds, right? Allow them to be bored so that they can be creative and think and have conversations like normal people. The second reason that they don't need a smartphone is because they put too many temptations against purity into their life. Right? Parents, I'm going to pick on you one more time. If you have young children, and you give them cell phones with unrestricted access to the internet all the time, and they are not supervised, they don't need it anyway, but they're not supervised, if they fall into these temptations against purity because you gave them the phone, guess who's going to be responsible for that? You are. Right? So if they have them already, take them away from them. If they don't have them already, then don't give it to them. And if they get mad at you when you either don't give it to them or take it away from them, tell them that Father Broussard made you do it. I don't care if they get mad at me. If they want to come yell at me, bring them to my office and they can yell all they want. Get it out of their hands. Because we need silence. We need it. And this is expressed so well in Mother Teresa's quite famous saying, a little progression. Right? She says that the fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of prayer is faith. The fruit of faith is love. The fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. Right? We all long for that peace. But we can't even begin to get there if we don't first have silence. Because we need that silence in order to pray and have all those other things follow along. Now, the second difficulty that we have in bringing silence into our lives is that we are afraid. Right? We're fearful. Part of the problem is that we just don't know how to be silent, right? And we need to learn, we need to practice. But I think that we also, many times, purposefully run away from the silence because we don't like it. We fill our lives with activities, right? Year-round sports, from the time that they can walk. Sometimes even too much stuff at church, right? Too many things going on. Now, I'm not telling you to stop volunteering altogether, because we need you. But sometimes we just fill our lives with things so that we don't have to be in the silence. Right? Most of these things are not bad in and of themselves, right? I played sports my whole life. I obviously, do a lot of stuff for the church. It's not bad in and of itself, but it can become too much. We fill our lives with social media, with charity benefits, with working constantly to get more money, to get more stuff, to do more things so that we don't have to sit in the silence. And we do it because we're afraid of the silence. Right? We fill every waking moment of our day with more things so that we're never uncomfortable. Why are we afraid of that silence? Right? Why does this go on? We're afraid of the silence because we think that it's an emptiness. Right? That there's nothing there. We're afraid of the silence because we think that maybe if we let ourselves sit in that silence, we're going to be bored. Not going to have anything to do. We're afraid of the silence because we're not yet convinced that the one who wants to be with us in that silence, who wants to meet us there, is not going to be enough for us. And we're afraid of the silence because we don't yet understand and believe that God alone can satisfy us. We're afraid to experience that silence that leads us to prayer. Also, because we're afraid of what God might ask of us. And if we spend that time in silence, asking God what He wants, listening to Him, trying to discover His will, the scary thing is that He's going to tell us what He wants. And sometimes it's going to be difficult. And both Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict spoke about this in their first homilies as Pope. Pope Benedict quoted Pope John Paul and sort of elaborated on it. And this is what he said. Are we not all perhaps afraid in some way? If we let Christ enter fully into our lives, if we open ourselves totally to Him, are we not afraid that He might take something away from us? Right? Even the Pope is acknowledging the fact that it can be scary. Right? We can have this initial fear in listening to what God wants, that He might take something away from us if we give ourselves to Him. Right, but he goes on and responds to that fear and assures us by saying, no, if we let Christ into our lives, we lose absolutely nothing of what makes life free, beautiful, and great. Right? He doesn't say we lose absolutely nothing and stop there. He says we lose nothing that makes life free, beautiful, and great. Because in reality, if we do sit in that silence and we open ourselves to Christ, there are going to be a lot of things that need to be stripped away from us. Right? But none of the things that we lose hinder our life in any way. It's nothing that makes life great that he takes from us. He goes on, no, only in this friendship are the doors of life open wide. And so today, with great strength and great conviction, on the basis of long personal experience of life, I say to you, do not be afraid of Christ. He takes nothing away, and he gives you everything. When we give ourselves to him, we receive 100-fold in return. Yes, open wide the doors to Christ, and you will find true life. Right? The Pope is speaking not as someone who just sat in a class and had to learn this stuff. He's not speaking as someone who, well, they're going to look at me and see I'm the Pope, so I sort of have to tell them what they want to hear. Right? No, he says, I'm speaking to you on the basis of long personal experience of life. As someone who has sat in that silence day after day after day and confronted God and allowed himself to be confronted by God and has been absolutely fulfilled because of it. Right? If we have that personal encounter that he speaks of, then we come to see that God is enough. Right? That being alone with him in that silence is not scary because we know that he satisfies. Silence is incredibly important in our spiritual life because it's only in the silence that we're able to move on to that step of prayer. And it's only in that life of intimate prayer with the Lord that we truly hear what he is telling us, that we're able to listen to him, and that we're able to, in turn, do his will. It's only whenever we do that we listen and obey him and do his will, that we find that true life. Right? Sitting by ourselves, alone, scrolling through whatever social media you like, or continuing to make yourself busy, right? That is not going to satisfy us. It's only in that intimate relationship with Christ that we find happiness. And so let us commit ourselves today to sitting in that silence, right? To being uncomfortable. Because it's only then that we will be truly able to enter into prayer and will truly be able to know what God is asking of us. And then we will be able to be that son, that daughter, who both hears what the Father asks of us and has the courage to go out and do it.